I believe we are live, people. Words I never thought I'd be saying in my life, going live with Doomcock in a matter of minutes. Now, I was a few seconds late because I was working out logistics as to how to conduct a live stream with a pulsating avatar of a man in a mask. So this is going to be phenomenal. First of all, is the audio good? My framing is good. I got the painting back there from now I'm going to forget the name of the avatar, but fan art, and I'm thinking about how to build out a studio if and when. So let's see what we got here. We got hi. This thing is we got Hail Viva. Why do I feel like this Hail Viva is going to come back to haunt me? We got hi, good. So a bunch of people who know about Doomcock and a bunch of people who doesn't are now in the same chat. This is amazing. Like full disclosure, I can't say that I knew of Doomcock before Robert dropped the name in one of our episodes, and it was such a new name to have been dropped. A Doomcock had never been dropped in a Viva Fry stream. I didn't know anything about it, and I looked it up to make sure that it was not going to lead to instant cancellation, and it looks good. But this is it. Okay, so I don't think I need to give the standard caveat. I didn't put slow mode on, so long as there's no spammers, nobody's going to get blocked for the stream. So don't abuse of the fact that there's no slow mode on. I should be able to get to all super chats. If I don't be angry. And I thank you in advance for the support. Viva Fry, Viva Barnes, Viva Doomcock. Perpetual Punster, thank you very much. So this is it. Like, we have come to a new realm of, I guess, Viva Barnes live streams. We started this channel, random stuff turned into law. I met Robert. We started doing routine live streams. And then we started doing the Wednesday thing with a guest. And Robert has, let's say, opened my horizons to new things. Doomcock for one, and Nerdrotic for the other, which I've now started watching, appreciating the value in what they do, in the commentary they provide. And by the way, we're going to get into it, but I just watched Doomcock's Ghostbusters 2016 analysis. It's brilliant, and we're going to talk about it when I bring him in. So we got now all hail the future ruler of... Okay, I mean, this joke, for anybody who doesn't get it, you'll get it in a few seconds. I see everyone is in, so I'm going to bring in Robert. I'm going to bring in Doomcock. I'm going to work the angle to see what is best. I think because Doomcock is at the center of the universe, he should go on the bottom. So let me see if this works. Bringing in Robert. Robert, how you doing?
Good.
All right, and now. Oh, wait, we got to fix the setup. No, we don't like that. This is what we like, I think.
I feel at home. I feel somehow rightly positioned in the universe. And I have to say, it is an honor to be here on Viva Barnes. I've just met Viva. I want to say hi. Hi there, Mr. Barnes. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to meet you. And I am here at the center of the earth, broadcasting from my base at the center of the earth, where for those of you who don't know, I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and I assess and defend and am attempting to restore pop culture. And I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for giving me this platform.
So first of all, Doomcock, congratulations on 250,000 subs. I think the live stream was yesterday, where I made my first appearance and first interaction with you. So congrats on that milestone. It's a big one. How long have you been doing this that it's taken? I mean, how long did it take you to get there?
It took me a little under 3.5 years. So I started in October of 2017 in a reaction of despair and anger. Obviously, I preferred to remain concealed at the center of the earth as I built my giant robot army for eventual invasion. The element of surprise and so on. But I saw Star Trek Discovery. And as a Star Trek fan, I was so angry. I was so despondent at what I was seeing, and particularly the media response to Star Trek Discovery when, everyone was proclaiming it as a bold new step in the direction of Star Trek. And I was like, what is this crap? I don't know. I was raised by, my mother could have been a character in a Tarantino movie. And so I have a bit of a foul mouth. I'll try to step on the F-bombs, but if one slips out, I apologize.
Just so you know, I know my daughter's friends from her school watch, so they've heard worse. Undoubtedly, my kids have heard worse from me. So don't tiptoe too much. But you know, the F-bomb's okay, but not some of the other bombs.
Absolutely. Well, I was F-bombing this and F-bombing that, and you know, ripping my helmet off, throwing it against the wall and everything as I watched this horror, this abomination, this SJW nonsense take on Star Trek, Roddenberry's beautiful, optimistic vision of a united humanity, which was colorblind and blind to, you know, differences in sexual preference and so on. And they're acting like, you know, Roddenberry was practically, wearing a hood and, you know, igniting crosses periodically. It's nuts. The world has gone insane. And I was being gaslit by the media proclaiming this thing was wonderful. And I just decided to emerge from hiding at the center of the earth and see if there was any intelligent life left up there on the surface. You know, I had to see, am I alone? Am I the last living cell in a dying body, as in that Dick Van Dyke episode? I don't know if you guys remember that, with Lolak of Twilo. Anyway, Danny Thomas was an alien. Anyway, I digress. And yeah, so you know, I was just a lone nut in the wilderness, like kind of John the Baptist eating locusts and wild honey and ranting about Star Trek Discovery. And lo and behold, a few people started to notice, and 3 years some odd months later, here I am with 250,000 subscribers.
Well, I got to give you a thanks because the accurate leaks you're able to get about the fall of Skywalker, the last of the Disney trilogy, saved me from watching that abomination. But what led to you getting those kind of sources? Was it the just independent buildup? Is it dissension within the Hollywood infrastructure, where people who actually love the original ideas behind these legacy shows that are being completely destroyed? What is it that led to you being in a position where you could have sources that you could provide that kind of information to your audience?
I think it's despair. I think there are a lot of people in Hollywood that are afraid. Right now, we're seeing a kind of a weird reverse, HUAC kind of a situation, House Committee on Un-American Affairs, commie hunters. I think the commies are in charge now, and they're hunting down the regular folks that enjoy regular entertainment. And I think that in every organization, like for instance, I was in contact for a while with somebody on the peripheral. I can't say who, but someone affiliated with Doctor Who. And this individual had gotten this position and loved Doctor Who. Absolutely loved it their whole life. It was like a dream to them. And they find when they get there that dream is crushed because nobody there shares that love. In fact, they are delighting and doing everything they can to undermine the Doctor because, we're not welcome, gentlemen. We are not welcome. We are no longer wanted in Hollywood. We are not valued. We are blamed for every evil under the sun, except maybe bubonic plague. But I don't know. They'll probably find a way to bring that around sometime.
Lord Doomcock, so I've watched a ton of your stuff now over the last 2 days, and you do a bunch of good voices. And so my theory, which would explain why you also go in the mask or are in fact the ruler of the center of the universe, that you have contacts or that you've had connections with Hollywood and Hollywood, the industry, because your voices are too good to not be marketable. And so you have actually insider information, which requires you to wear this mask so as to not out your sources or as to remain an anonymous source to whom people can come. How accurate is that?
Well, there are many legends around Doomcock, and I can neither confirm nor deny any of that. But I can say that I report what I am given as accurately as I can. trying to conceal any personal biographical details that might imperil these people. Because honestly, there is division within places like Lucasfilm, where, you know, there are the Lucas loyalists that believe in Star Wars as a story. And then there are the Kennedy faction that believe in Star Wars as a platform to gaslight the public, to give, promote social change in the direction that they wanted, ignoring that we have been making social change and social progress since the 60s. I mean, Star Trek was a wonderful vision of utopia, really. I mean, it was a wonderful integrated show that promoted respect for all living beings, not merely humans, not merely of one race or one sex, but of all beings, including hordas, rocks that walk around, as opposed to geode, which is a rock that doesn't walk around in the new High Republic, which is one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. But you mentioned my voices. I think if you gentlemen will not mind, I will take off my helmet. And that way, if I feel like breaking out a little Shatner or Hank Hill, I can do that. It doesn't sound the same in the helmet,
No, for sure.
Go ahead and do Captain Kirk in the helmet, but it doesn't come off right.
Well, and especially you broke out into song a number of times yesterday, and you also have a very good voice. So it leads me to believe that you have been in the performing arts, which might explain some of the connections, but that it is an interesting point that there is silent dissent, even from within the beast, that are not happy with the way politics ruins everything, and politics is ruining entertainment.
It absolutely is. And in fact, we could talk about this, but my feeling is that entertainment has been systematically targeted because, personally for me, one of the things that I stand for is unity. I will not discuss or take political stands per se in my videos, because I feel that pop culture is kind of a last refuge where people on the left and people on the right can get together and have fellowship and talk to each other and listen to each other. I mean, there's something universal about our pop culture that is precious. When I am in a room and if I see someone flash the Vulcan salute, I know I found a brother or a sister. And I don't care how they voted. I don't care, petty differences like that. We love things. This is about love. And these people that are it's systematic, guys. It's got to be. Look at what's happened to Doctor Who. Doctor Who has been retconned out of existence. It's not merely that they had a female Doctor Who, which is, could be cosmetic, whatever, but they did an episode that basically undermined and destroyed the entirety of the Doctor Who lore, where it turned out that all the Time Lords stole their regeneration properties and everything that they had from a timeless child, which was the Doctor. And they basically killed this child over and over and over again to steal the secret of regeneration. Isn't that a charming take on the Doctor? But of course, these kids were more often than not people of color, you see. And it was a white woman that was killing over and over again these kids. So of course that's a metaphor for the kind of message that they want to spread. Look at Star Trek. Star Trek has gone insane. It used to represent, at the very least, narrative coherence and kind of a very enlightened liberalism. And at this point, it just represents a lot of hatred and negativity, violence, eye gouging, had a severed baby head. You ever see that on Star Trek? And then Star Wars.
I think I saw something bad in one of the zombie series, but I probably shouldn't even describe it now for fear of...
Probably not.
I mean, what's amazing, the way I describe it to people is that it's like if somebody took the Bible and let's say you're in a culture that was their origin story, that was their explanation of the world, that was their canon, and rewrote it, and then gaslit everybody into claiming they hadn't actually rewrote it while rewriting it, and that's happening systematically. The canons of American culture and a lot of the world are Hollywood entertainment and the narratives that have been shaped. And these narratives were shaped that had as you describe, as George Lucas has justified and defined, these are universal values. This goes beyond race, it goes beyond religion, it goes beyond region. It was about universal ideals, telling the hero, a universal appeal of the hero's narrative, and they're attacking and gutting all of it in a sort of Soviet style approach. And aside from the moral damage that does to the cultural fabric and of shared experience and of a canon of common understanding, what it also does is make really, really lousy, I'll use a nice word, lousy entertainment.
You're spot on. I mean, these people don't care about narrative. I mean, this is a deep subject because, I mean, then we transition into the decline in educational standards and the decline in standards of personal achievement. Look, you don't get many great writers out of a culture where everybody gets a participation trophy on the playground. I write. I pride myself on my writing skills, and I can tell you it springs from a place of great self-loathing and despair, because when you're writing these things, you have to have the optimism to mount the attempt to write something in the first place, and then you have to have the self-loathing and skepticism to look at what you've written and rip it apart and hate it. And only that process, absent an editor, absent nurturing, supporting mentors, of which most people have none. You gotta rely on yourself, and these people that are now populating the Lucasfilm Story Group, the writers' room in Star Trek, they don't know shit about their topic. B, they lack the rigor and the skills and the intellect, and I think the love, the compassion to be great writers. They're just phoning it in and getting a paycheck and slotting in their proportions of representation and diversity and check. All good. Let's go home. Same thing with Doctor Who. You don't get great narratives from propagandists.
Well, that actually what I was going to say is that I think they've targeted, or I've seen the targeting of entertainment on steroids compared to what it was, because I think it's always been there. I remember growing up, I remember the same types of themes always being mentioned, like the goofy, idiotic, dad making fun of certain characters who are always the stooges. But it just seems like it's on steroids now, and that people have realized the easiest way to reach millions and millions of people with a highly politicized, call it a message of indoctrination, is to get straight into the trilogies, these series that have had massive followings, and then literally like the next generation of them who don't necessarily remember the original, but know that the originals were the definition or the paradigm of awesomeness in the time, and then they try to redo them with these highly political messages, and the new generation is to think that this is what made it classic in the first place. And you can't have good writing either when everyone is too scared. I'm saying this not to be hyperbolic. When everyone is too scared to offend someone or feels the professional pressure to propagate a political message in the writing, it's impossible.
It really is, and it just leaches the soul out of you. It leaches the soul out of the writing. This kind of thing, really what these people are, they are cultural vandals. That's a phrase that I came up with, where essentially they are taking a big can of red spray paint and putting their tags on every piece of culture in the past that they view in their political paradigm as degraded and somehow contributing to the woes of the world, imperialism, discrimination, et cetera, and so on, when really what it is, it's inspirational. A lot of kids like me growing up, we learned a lot about being a man and being noble and being heroic and self-sacrificing from Captain Kirk. from Batman. These kind of cultural pillars, which I refer to as myths. I mean, they really are modern myths, and they explain the world in a certain way. They inspire people in a lot of ways, and so to attack these pillars, to knock them down, it's doing several things. It's demoralizing the people that they view as the enemy, namely us, and it is also kind of passing judgment and critique on the past and trying to demolish it for the simple purpose of demolition, for vandalism. I mean, why don't they make new stories? Why don't they make new stories that have messages of their kind of diversity and their kind of worldview? Well, the answer is because they can't, because they suck.
Well, the obvious answer is they're sort of like, I would say hijacking, but they're usurping a channel that already has, by analogy, that has 1 million subs already, and then changing the theme of that channel as opposed to building it up. So it's easy. You get a targeted audience or a captive audience already, and you think you can sort of get them to go along with it. But when they don't, and they didn't, and we're going to get into the Ghostbusters 2016, when they don't, they scrub the internet of all dissent, and they vilify anybody who would disagree with it, and use one of the isms or the obias to disregard or delegitimize that constructive criticism. Was your big breakthrough on your channel the Ghostbusters breakdown?
No, I would say really Star Trek Discovery was. YouTube did this thing with the COPA decision. You guys are probably aware of that thing about child advertising and so on and so forth. And they also did a thing about you can't be too negative or something. So I had to remove a number of videos from my channel just out of defense, just in case. But I would say, I don't know, I would say that I got a huge surge of subscriptions and exposure, like national exposure for the Rise of Skywalker stuff around that Christmas when that horrible abomination happened. And I also kind of made news around the world when I broke this story about how within the Rise of Skywalker were planted the seeds for the retconning and destruction of the Disney sequel trilogy that would ultimately be undone by a mechanism that Dave Filoni came up with in the Rebels cartoon, which was the Veil of the Force, which is a kind of a backstage area of reality where all points of the future and the past are linked, and the Force is all there. And the idea being that, when they were stupid enough to bring Palpatine back, and it turned out it was all Palpatine all along, all Ahsoka has to do really is slip into the Veil of the Force, wait for Palpatine to transport himself when he's falling, after Darth Vader chucked him down the shaft in the Return of the Jedi, he used all his power to teleport himself into the Veil. Usually he'd do that with mirrors. He had those mirrors on Exegol. But he didn't have any mirrors handy. Unfortunately, he forgot to pack his makeup compact. He could have flipped it up, powdered his nose, and then transported himself that way. But alas. Anyway, they do that, and everything changes. And, and the problem is there is definitely a faction within Lucasfilm that wants to do this, that has been planning to do this. And I believe that Favreau and Filoni were actively engaged in doing that. In fact, it already has changed, from my understanding, with the introduction of Grogu and bringing Luke Skywalker back. Now he's got Grogu, and he's kind of tipped to the whole thing. And that is when Gina Carano got fired, because it was a direct act of sabotage against Favreau and Filoni, and a lamentable one that is costing Disney dearly, from my understanding, because this has not flown well. Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take my helmet off here, if you don't mind.
Go for it. And while you do that, I'm just going to bring up one chat. Point Curation is the individual who painted that painting behind me. Resist cultural vandalism. Say what you think is true. Speak your mind. Create art. Develop tradition. Permit escapism. Praise Doomcock. Thank you very much, Point.
He saved the best for last. Praising Doomcock is very important. And thank you, sir.
The other thing, the way I also describe this as cultural vampirism in essence, because the goal isn't just to create a new narrative. It's like the French Revolution. It's like the Cultural Revolution of Mao. The obsession is to completely obliterate the past. Because what was intriguing to me when I first heard what they were talking about doing with Kathleen Kennedy and the Star Wars legacy, I thought, no way could they really be planning that. And then I got to witness it in the not only aesthetically displeasing, unentertaining films that they made, but films that the most offending part, what seemed to really enrage large parts of the fan base, what built these independent critics like yourself in terms of having substantial audiences, such that now they pay great attention to what you guys are saying, is that this attempt to obliterate and sort of urinate on and defecate on the past. That they weren't just satisfied we're going to have, Raylo and all of that. It's going to be that Luke's got that whole history that you believed in, the first 6 movies, they were all useless. They meant nothing. That narrative meant nothing. That they were going to torch it. They were going to throw it down the shaft the way Darth Vader did the Emperor. And that that Luke Skywalker was zero. He's such a zero. He's sitting there milking goats and all that nonsense. They needed to humiliate that history. They needed to burn and torch that history like they did with the Cultural Mao Revolution, like they did with the French Revolution. It's why both of them went off the rails. It's why both of them went insane. And I think people underappreciate the damage that's being done to our cultural icons and our cultural iconography, because these people are not just satisfied with their own message. This isn't like the Christian message to replace the Judaic message or the Islamic message to replace the others. This is to burn down and torch the old legacy, the old message, the old history. At what point did that become more and more clear to you that the degree to which this was happening? And when were you introduced to this in general? Well, was it the Star Trek that got you, or did you start to see it in little places, or was it more kind of all at once?
Well, I got to tell you, taking over the world is a time-consuming task. And, I was focused down at the center of the earth, breeding my giant insect armies, reviving my undead armies, putting together my giant robots. So I was largely oblivious to this stuff. But I do love Star Trek. I've loved Star Trek my whole life. And, I just, all I saw was that Star Trek was terrible. And this Star Trek Discovery thing was really antithetical to everything that Gene Roddenberry represented. I mean, not only did it just violate canon in terms of established continuity, the Klingorks, I don't call them Klingons, they're Klingorks from the Lord of the Rings, burning fires on the bridge of their ships, for God's sakes. I don't know how these people ever came up with warp drive, but these Klingorks, they said, came up with cloaking technology, not the Romulans, and which is absolutely ridiculous. It just the thematic violations of Roddenberry's optimism, his view of the future as a very bright one for humanity was fundamentally violated, and it just got worse and worse over time. And by the 4th episode, I was in such a lather that I went ahead and emerged from the center of the earth prematurely. And put my invasion plans over to the side just to say, hey, are you people paying any attention? I mean, seriously, this is not Star Trek. This is not even close to Star Trek. And I expected no one to notice me. But as time went on, and I started seeing, Star Wars, for example, The Force Awakens. I didn't go see Star Wars The Force Awakens in theaters. I didn't have to. When I saw the poster, I was like, wait a minute. What's that big sphere up there? Oh, that's Starkiller Base. And what is Starkiller Base? Well, you know how the Death Star destroyed a planet? Well, this one destroys an entire solar system. And I was like, Jesus. And I see. And that skinny lad over there, oh, that's a girl. Oh, okay. And dressed like Luke Skywalker? Yeah. With a droid? Yeah. That's got secret plans? Yeah. I just saw that this was a rinse and repeat kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, well, this is lazy garbage. I didn't put it together until The Last Jedi. And that's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. They have done to Luke Skywalker what they have done to Starfleet and to the Federation in Star Trek. What's going on here? And then they started doing things like, turning She-Ra into a boy, the all-female Ghostbusters reboot, which, God bless them. If it had been an all-female Ghostbusters where it was the daughters of the original Ghostbusters and they had been, funny, well, that's okay. Listen, I am all for any kind of diversity and representation that you want to do, as long as A, it's respectful to what came before, and B, if it's just entertaining and has some kind of narrative coherence. That none of these things ever go together. None of them ever go together. They are simply out to destroy the things that we love, I think, because we love them. And it is their way of demoralizing us, as if there's some kind of division. I don't understand where all this division comes from. I really don't, because honestly, they are the racists. They are the segregationists, when everything that they look at is through the prism of division, where, you don't even look at a story and say, what a beautiful story. You say, well, where's my Asian representation? Where's my trans representation? Well, then that's all that these people care about. They want to turn art into a goddamn pie chart.
Well, there's two things to that. I mean, I said it yesterday as it relates to the media itself. With respect to the media, dividing promoting the divide, creating a frenzy around the perceived divide where everyone looks at themselves as a victim and looks at the other like an aggressor. It's the business model for social media or for mainstream media. With respect to, entertainment, what I'm starting to think now is it's the business model as well, is if you can't make good movies, make movies that are so politically charged and politically infused with ideological tendencies that you can, if you can't succeed off quality, you can succeed off vilifying the people who don't like it, and you can shame them into watching it, and you can shame them into silence to criticize it, because if you criticize it, it must make you intolerant. And I never fully appreciated this, because Doomcock, you might hate me, I did not like I was young and wasn't interested in the first 3 Star Wars, but I saw them and they were decent. Never got into the other ones. Couldn't care less about, this controversy that everyone talks about. I appreciate that people get into it. I was more involved in the controversy of, politically correctifying The Simpsons and Family Guy saying no more certain types of jokes, but we're going to continue with others because some people you can make fun of and others you can't. So I didn't get into that drama. But when I watched, and I didn't see the reboot of the Ghostbusters, because there was no chance on earth I was going to watch it. There's no chance. It's not. And nothing to do with the actresses. I didn't actually appreciate that they filled them with 3 women characters. I wasn't going to watch Total Recall remake either. But when I saw your breakdown, and you broke down the movie, and spoiler alert for anybody who doesn't want to hear it, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a few years late. The bit that you mentioned about, I forget the actress, Leslie Jones, talking about Bill Murray's deceased body after he got sucked out of the window and he wasn't Ghostbusters material. There, I appreciate that it's in your face, as if to tell the next generation who may not have seen the classics that the classic was terrible and that this is better by virtue of the fact that we tell you it is. And if you don't like it, by the way, you're racist and misogynist and you're going to get blocked on Twitter and your reviews are going to get taken down off Rotten Tomatoes. So, I mean, what is the hardest manifestation of this tendency that you've seen? It's Star Wars, Star Trek, and Ghostbusters? Well,
honestly, it's all the same thing. I mean, you were talking about The Simpsons, same thing. Where Hank Azaria can no longer voice Apu because he is not the correct color, as if we're not all human beings anymore. We're just not all human beings. We are divided into groups, and if you are playing a legless World War II vet, you better find a guy who actually is legless. God forbid there should be any acting involved. I mean, they are that ridiculous. And Ghostbusters was a perfect example of they want to get aggressively in our face. And it is not about telling good stories. And it's certainly not about inclusivity, because, they are excluding us. They are excluding people that love the original material because they view us as unworthy. They view us as criminal, morally bankrupt, imperialistic, whatever what have you? What have you got? What have you got in your back pocket of accusations? Just pull it up, check it off. Yep, that's us. It's same thing in Star Trek. Star Trek, the season 2, they had a scene where, the Discovery met the Ha-Ha Enterprise. And I say Ha-Ha Enterprise because it's nothing like it. It's a bunch of garbage, horrible design, not anything like it. But anyway, they do shit like they all go out maniacally in these stupid pinball sphere things in an asteroid field, and they're all zipping and dodging and everything. And Mikey Spock, of course, is the bestest ever, and she's not going to get hit by an asteroid. You know who gets killed? The loudmouth white guy that dared to question that she was the bestest ever. So he had to die. Captain Pike almost died, but they saved him because they had to, because Anson Mount is a star, but they sure humbled him in that way. And at the end of the episode, you know how Kirk and Picard and Sisko and Janeway would agonize over dead crewmen? He doesn't even mention him. And he was his science officer on the Enterprise. He doesn't even, oh yeah, what's his name? Yeah. He doesn't even say that. He doesn't even say, yeah, tough shit about what's his name. Nah, they just forget about him because he's worthless. That is the thing. That's the problem, that these phonies, these SJW phonies, they really are fake. Because if they really, really cared about diversity, they would be extolling the virtues of one of the best damn shows ever made, which is The Expanse, which I have praised and praised and praised and praised from the highest mountain, that has the more diversity on every single level than any of these other shows. All of them are great characters, written with integrity, written with humanity, and that is all we want. If we were the ists and phobes that they say we are, why do we love The Expanse? The difference between being woke and just being like Roddenberry, being like Star Trek, being like The Expanse, is woke wants a badge, wants to like parade their virtue and everything. They want a virtue signal. They don't give a damn about actually moving the needle for social justice or social causes like all of us that love Star Trek did. No, they just want to go ahead and virtue signal how wonderful they are and how bad everything else is. They are essentially vilifying one class of people. It is the 2-minute hate in 1984. And what these phonies, I call them racists. They straight up racist because all they see is race. What they are doing is they are simply passing the isolation, the disdain, and the racism from one group to another. They're passing the baton of racism in a relay of racism. And all that does is it just comes around again, and it'll switch groups later down the line. Instead of being colorblind, accepting of all human souls like The Expanse.
Well, Doomcock, the retort to that is going to be that, back in the 80s, or I guess it was 70s, 80s, less so in the 90s, the running gag, everybody knew it in the horror movies. The first character to die, more often than not, was the black character. And it became like the gag in Scary Movie and subsequent comedies of 80s horror movies. So people are just going to say, well, now it's just the tides are turning. Now it's the white dude's turn to be mocked. It's the white dude's turn to get killed off first. And so if it was acceptable back then, it should be acceptable now. And if you don't want to accept it, you're the one who doesn't want to give up your time in the sun.
Well, that's my point. So they want to go ahead and perpetuate racism and sexism and discrimination. They want to go ahead and have their revenge. They're not actually interested in acceptance and in bettering the human race. They just want their pound of flesh, and they are passing the baton and feeling very righteous about denigrating and vilifying one particular group. As long as you have any group that is excluded and it's okay to mock and shit on, then you have racism that will never, ever go away. So can we not move beyond this? Can we not have respect universally for all living souls? Or do we always have to have somebody on the bottom of the pecking order that gets shit on?
Well, and the other thing with this is, how much did I have good friends that have been in the Hollywood industry for quite some time, very successful agents, other things. The number one thing they do is read scripts. Even if they're representing actors, they're mostly reading scripts. That's 2/3 of their job. And, they would always tell me the critical component of what David Mamet would talk about, which is the necessity of that hero's arc. And that if they didn't see it, they weren't interested in the script 9 times out of 10. But what's astounding to me is that almost all of these, it's like, if you wanted to create a feminist hero, okay. And there's been a lot of questions about Critical Drinker. Critical Drinker did a nice breakdown of the key problem with so many of these films is that you don't have the hero's arc, and that you can't because it would require at the beginning, if you're going to make the man the bad guy and the woman the hero, as an example, then the woman's got to lose at some point, because then you're invested in that character. Then they overcome obstacles. Then they've made change, like Luke Skywalker did, like Antonin Sky, all those key characters have. But they can't have that ever appear on screen. So they all have to be Betty Sue's. They all have to be perfect little characters that never have any problem, that never lose. But then you no longer have the hero's arc. I'm surprised that so much big entertainment is now being made that lacks the core aspect that at least the people I knew in Hollywood said was essential and fundamental to even getting a project made. When did that process start? And is the reason that politics trumps everything in this context, even the necessity of a hero's arc in telling a story and getting emotional investment?
Well, I mean, like I said, I think you could trace it back to the lowering of standards. I think you've got a lot of people. Well, first of all, nepotism in Hollywood. Cronyism, having your untalented nephew, your, little niece that never had a day's hard work in her life, never had a moment of self-doubt, just feels entitled, just goes in there and, daddy says it's good, so it's good. You don't have any meritocracy, and you don't have people that typically, I think personally, the best writers, the best artists and actors are the outsiders. Those of us in our little isolated areas, like at the center of the earth, you don't get to be a supervillain at the center of the earth if you've had everything handed to you and everything's come up roses. I've got, like I've said, a lot of self-loathing and a lot of questioning, and I question everything I do. I look at everything I do with a jaundiced eye because I didn't get participation trophies. I didn't get, everything you do is okay, wonderful. Shit, when I would do plays in school, my mom would praise the other actors before me, even though I got a standing ovation. Thanks, Mom. Which I did. But anyway, but I digress. I don't want to air my personal pain on this discussion, but I think it really comes down to that, because I don't know how anybody worth their salt, anybody with a soul, anybody that cares anything about higher things like art or poetry or love could bear to crank out crap like this. It really is. There is no hero's journey. There is no arc, because of the reason you said, because, Mikey Spock, to be the bestest ever, has to be born on home base with a triple, a 3-run homer that she had to have been born on home base with, because we can't have any kind of human flaw in Mikey Spock. We can't have any kind of human flaw in any minority characters, because that runs counter to the message. They're always noble. They are always downtrodden by the patriarchy, the power elite, however you want to put it. And again, it is that division between viewing our cultural myths, our geek mythology, I like to call it, as a narrative or as a platform. And their platform is really not, honestly, it really isn't about social change or making the world a better place. It really is all about painting your numbers correctly and forcing people to adhere to your narrative, to your not even narrative, like your agenda. That's the proper word.
Right,
it really is like 1984 again. I talked about the 2-minute hate, where there always has to be somebody isolated for the 2-minute hate to keep the masses placated. But there's also the Ministry of Truth, where they would go ahead and shred anything from the past that countered the narrative of the government was pushing. And that's what they're doing. Star Trek is obviously proof that, progress has been made, proof that we have been working towards a universal embracing of all humanity and all sexes and basically just the love of mankind since then. So they can't really virtue signal and take credit for that like they want to. They have to vilify it. I've seen William Shatner attacked by these NPC SJW MOUSE hordes on Twitter, calling him a ist and a phobe, saying that Star Trek was a oppressive, a terrible, bigoted show. And Shatner doesn't take that shit, which is why he's my captain.
He's pretty saucy on Twitter. I was surprised. There were some people surprised me in their propensity to respond. The hard way. James Woods, I got used to him very quickly, but some other ones who you'd think would be more tame were not quite so tame. I want to bring up two chats that I can no longer bring up. I'm going to read them. JBit89 says, is Marvel heading down road of Star Wars? Interview with Falcon Soldier directing, talking about what they will address in series. Now, don't want to watch it. I want entertainment to be escape from reality with a good story. That was from JBit89. And then I had two big super chats from Pudding Tang 2. Says, never thought I'd see Viva and Barnes have the pop culture commentators I watch on their channel. I guys, things in this world ain't so bad. Hail Viva, hail Barnes, hail Doomcock. And then there's one more. The Expanse is the greatest sci-fi series since the original Star Wars, hands down. What you said, actually, Doomcock, reminded me of something. I think it was Billy Joe of Green Day that said it, or it might have been someone else before him, that you have your whole life to write your first story or your first song or your first album. And then after that, it becomes a little bit more difficult because everything that went into the first one, all the life experiences you're talking about, the tragedy that goes into the original work of creativity, it sort of gets diluted. And then the more successful you get, the more difficult it gets. And you can sort of track that performance art from, good albums to bad albums, great first 3 or 4 movies to bad ones. So I mean, what's the solution to not being soured by the success of a series? I mean, how do you keep up the originality, or at some point do you just have to drop it and move on to create something else?
Well, I think you have to be deeply dysfunctional like I am. Every video I put out to me matters, and I want it to be the best that it can be. It's a point of personal pride. It's a point of craftsmanship. It helps to not have been, have a wall full of participation trophies that weren't earned in any way. You know what I'm saying? The passion. That is something that these kind of pod people, that's what I call them. They really are. They're like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They're like at the end of that movie, the remake, Kaufman's version in the 70s, when Veronica Cartwright approaches Donald Sutherland and says, "Oh, you survived," and his mouth yawns open. He goes, "Oh," he's been turned into an SJW. You've got to keep that love of narrative, of truth, of beauty alive. If you don't have that, then you really are just kind of cranking out product at that point.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I haven't watched the new Marvel series they just put out, but I've been hearing unsettling things that Marvel, and the thing that strikes me is I understand the people in positions of power, the Kathleen Kennedys of the world, are more than willing to sacrifice profits for cultural power as they see fit. What I don't understand is how long the investor class is going to tolerate continued declining profits and popularity. I mean, I get that some of them have been gaslit into, hey, it's only these crazy alt-right neo-Nazis who disagree with this, and really that they've tried to spoil it and smear it with their bad reviews. But in fact, everybody really loves terrible, terrible entertainment that violates core rules of entertainment, aside from the questionable bastardized politics of it. But how long can Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy cost them billions and billions of dollars. She destroyed interest even in the prior films by what she did. They're never going to be able to sell enough tickets at the Disney parks, even post-COVID, to be able to get people to go to those parts of the park. In the same way, they can't even sell the toys to kids. Nobody wants a little Rey in their thing. Maybe a few feminists do, but nobody else does. And now they spoiled getting Luke Skywalker. How long can they survive putting out this crap that people don't like and don't want, and that will cost them at the box office, cost them in licensing, cost them in merchandising, cost them in every monetary means manageable? How long can they survive it? Or do the investors also, are they either gaslit or do they not care about their lost profits for gaining cultural power?
I have no idea. I do not understand. I have been asking myself. I was hoping you gentlemen could tell me. You, sir, are wearing a tie and a vest. I assume that you are you're much more business savvy than I am. God only knows. I do not understand. I thought the corporations were legally required to do that which maximizes the return on investment for investors. So how is it? You tell me. Well, lawyers, please. How can they not pursue some kind of class action when it turns out? Look at Kurtzman. Star Trek was was a machine for printing money before Kurtzman and Secret Hideout got a hold of it. Where's the Star Trek merchandise now? When was the last time you walked through Walmart or Target or a department store and saw a Star Trek section? There is nothing there. It is a desert. In fact, the old merchandise for Star Trek is no longer selling either. McFarlane Toys came out with a Captain Kirk and Captain Picard figure set that was they were fantastic likenesses. And somebody told me they saw it over at Walgreens in a bargain bin. That kind of, isn't that corporate malpractice? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
Robert and I, we briefly talked about it with the Dr. Seuss business. Like Dr. Seuss, the estate, the trust, whatever it is that's managing his estate, decides to stop distributing 1 or 6 of the books, as though that can possibly be in the best business interest of the estate. But the thing is, it's a different type of currency right now. You have your financial currency, you have your influence currency, and you have your, and it's a cliche, your virtue signaling currency. Like it's almost gotten to a point where it's okay to lose money if you're doing it at the expense or to gain virtue signaling points. Like the only reason I lost money is because the alt-right extremists didn't watch the movie, so it makes me good for having lost money on it. It's I guess it's like the participation trophy prize, but we're playing in different currency now, where financial losses will be offset by moral virtue superiority, even if it's itself just a pure fabrication. Dr. Seuss, Captain Underpants now. I mean, they're doing things that are going to cost them money. With the selling point is it'll make us more money down the line because people are going to invest in us as a tolerant, progressive company. Whereas I don't think it will. And then it's just going to be a write-off. Well, if we lost money, it's their fault because they're racist. And I've seen it as to how I've been dealt with on social media. And you just get pushed to the side where they don't want your money anymore. And it's like it's good for them to not get your money because they've branded you evil.
Well, and there's a complete lack of proper incentives within the employment structure. So, I mean, the problem is, Kathleen Kennedy should have been fired. In a normal business-driven world, Kathleen Kennedy would have been fired after The Last Jedi. Definitely would have been fired after the debacle of the fall of Skywalker. And then when she goes and fires, now I think where she made a mistake, and you've been talking a lot about it on your channel, is that she was clearly enraged that Jon Favreau. Well, I think we've already outed it, so I think I've already spoiled this for the people who get mad at the spoilers.
Anybody who doesn't watch it, turn it off now. Give him 5 seconds, Robert, before you go on.
If you want to wait to watch The Mandalorian, tune in 5 minutes. But clearly, Favreau, genius move, who clearly just cares about the legacy. He's not political, just brings back Luke Skywalker, sort of gives a bridge to rescuing the Star Wars legacy. I think it got close to 100 million views, last I heard. Intensely popular. And the way Kathleen Kennedy responds is she's so enraged at this effort to restore the narrative she had spent so much time burning down that her reaction wasn't, wow, this is great. We can have both fan bases. It's no, I'm going to destroy that part of the fan base. And I'm going to punish Favreau by removing someone he was relying upon for future Mandalorians and other series spinoffs. But I think she made a mistake because she red-pilled a bunch of people. She put a red pill in the cultural water supply. And all of a sudden, a lot of people woke up to what you've been on the tip of the spear of discussing. A lot of people hadn't fully realized. They didn't realize, why is it that my 16-year-old kid thinks that a lot of things that, I didn't teach them are true, that gender identity is a choice, that you can take, that it's a good idea for 12-year-olds to take pills to change their gender. Things that, were not popular ideas. And we didn't teach them, but we're discovering our kids' generation believes in. It's because politics and life and culture, all of it's downstream from culture. To what degree did Kathleen Kennedy make a monumental, potentially course-reversing mistake in the firing of Gina Carano?
Well, let me ask you this. If you were the CEO of the Disney Corporation and you were called out in Forbes magazine for mismanagement and hypocrisy for firing Gina Carano, how would you like that? How would you like that? I don't know. I'm not really a business person, but I understand that Forbes is pretty popular among investors and among the executive class. And to be called out like that publicly has got to be a really, really upsetting thing, don't you think? Well, I mean, isn't that a backlash of such epic proportions that even Disney can't ignore it?
I call it the Cuomo phenomenon, but where someone becomes so toxic and such a liability that even the institution has to turn on them and call them out. It's but a lot of people in the chat are raising the question of, so long as it sells in China, that as though to suggest that the financial interest is to placate the market in China. But Doomcock, you probably have a better feel for the ground than I do. Does the SJ, what we call SJW stuff, does this sort of woke, politically infused mainstream media stuff sell in China, or is it a different product that is being sold to China?
No, China hates that shit. They hate that SJW shit. I think The Last Jedi played about a week in China before it got booed off the screen and they walked out. I mean, they don't even care that much about Star Wars over there, but they don't put up with that woke shit. They didn't like Ghostbusters. They don't like any of that crap. So I don't know really what they're doing. I think that what we've got is a bunch of ideologues, in the executive suites. I think somehow, I don't know if maybe it goes back to Weinstein. Maybe we've got a whole lot of guilty people with a whole lot of skeletons in their closet, and they are quaking in their boots, and they are virtue signaling their asses off to forestall any negative consequences along those lines. Maybe that's what started the ball rolling, and then they just have gone completely overboard and insane. But look, it's catching up to them. It's catching up to them. Look at, the Forbes article. From what I understand, my sources have told me this, and I just saw a video from Midnight's Edge also giving some credence to these rumors that I've heard that, post Gina Carano being fired, subscriptions dipped on Disney Plus. And not only that, but also viewership. Even the people that remained are not really watching WandaVision, not really watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier from what rumors I've heard, from what my sources have told me. And this seems to be, it might be circumstantial, but it definitely has a demarcation point from the firing of Gina Carano.
What's the chance that Marvel goes down this same woke path? Because I've heard some rumors that that's where the Falcon show is headed on Disney Plus.
100%. It's already there. No, it's there. I mean, Feige is planning to turn Phase 4 of the MCU into the MCU. All of the male superheroes are going to be replaced. They are coming out with a She-Thor movie. They are coming out with She-Hulk. They are coming out with Iron Man is going to be replaced by Pepper Potts. And then later on, according to the rumors that I've heard from my sources, then it will be handed to Tony Stark's daughter.
Did I hear right? Is it really going to be Natalie Portman playing the female Thor?
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I guess she's going to be worthy.
Any problem with that imagery?
Well, I have a problem that the hammer weighs as much as she does. That's a weird thing. I don't know, but it's like, can God make a rock so heavy that he can't lift it? I don't know. This kind of metaphorical, metaphysical discussion is too heady for a future ruler of Earth.
From a purely physiological discussion, this is science, and which is why dinosaurs only got to be so big, is that the strength ratio of bones to muscle is different. So something can only get so big and stand up under its own weight. So even if Natalie Portman had all the strength in the world, I mean, unless the body was not a human body, should not be able to lift up anything of immeasurable weight. But I've got to tell you, you guys are speaking new languages to me, because I don't follow any of these things, because I never had any interest, and I don't have any interest in them, because I found them to be garbage as of a long time ago. I guess maybe I just never appreciated why they were of a low quality. I don't think it was. I bring it back to Simpsons. Maybe it's just it was never my thing. I remember when Simpsons started to turn, and I remember when Family Guy started to turn, and it was exactly for the same reasons that you're describing now. Is when they got too sensitive to carry on with what made them great in the first place and started caving to certain pressures. It ceased being funny. It ceased being original, and it killed the spirit of what made it great in the first place.
Oh yeah, I mean, that is a distinguishing characteristic of these SJWs. They don't have a sense of humor.
No, whatsoever. Viva, what about your kids? Do your kids watch any of this stuff?
I might get in trouble. They watch the early episodes of The Simpsons. Family Guy, I'm working slowly because I've got to vet the episodes before we can watch them. We watched the Star Wars knockoff of the Family Guy, and another one which is a half-hour episode. And it's funny, kids,
but not like the Marvel films or the Avengers or the Star Wars or Star Trek.
We're mostly into cartoons, so if they start making, I don't know how you can make I don't know how you can ruin Megamind if you remake it, because you're dealing with very eclectic characters. But no, we're still into the cartoons, and I'm trying to get him into educational stuff like Planet Earth and some of the classics. But I don't know. I watched the one with the guy with the big face, where he destroyed Thanos. I maybe I have a part of my brain that's not developed or just never got interested in it, but I just don't find anything interesting about it. I don't like the special effects. I like the storyline a la Old Boy, which and Pulp Fiction type movies, the plot lines and not special effects, which is why I never got into the Star Wars stuff. But even there, you can't. I was just thinking about this the other day. Can you imagine Quentin Tarantino making Pulp Fiction today? You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it, and it's killing the ability to make the greats, the greatest movies ever made, because when you make Apollo, you have to take out the iconic planting the flag on the moon type thing. It's crazy. It is madness. Nothing shy of it.
And that's a shame, because Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. I love that movie. I mean, I am not, just to let you guys know, I mean, I am a geek, but I also, read Shakespeare. My Casablanca, I regard as perhaps the greatest movie of all time. Lawrence of Arabia, Glengarry Glen Ross, which you were alluding to earlier. A, B, C, A, always B, B, C, closing, always be closing, always be closing. I love drama. I love all forms of narrative. Foreign movies, I have a broad educational background, and one of my big obsessions has always been philosophy, for example, Eastern philosophy, looking at the Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, things like that. So I have a broad perspective, which I all bring to bear through this lens of pop culture, because really there is no difference, because it is a way that people process the world. They are inspired by these narratives. They are inspired by the joy of a thing well made, a thing with passion. I don't differentiate between subject matter of films. For example, I have a 5-star rating system, and my rating system is if that film is as perfect as that film could have been, regardless of its intent or its audience, it gets that 5 stars. So Casablanca has 5 stars in the same way that Little Shop of Horrors, the musical by Frank Oz, which was holy smokes, that was a thing of brilliance, directorial brilliance. I'm surprised Frank Oz hasn't directed a lot more things. Same thing with the Blues Brothers. John Landis's Blues Brothers, one of the funniest movies ever made.
Well, you could not make Little Shop of Horrors today. There would be too many racially implied undertones of the movie. It was one of the first movies that gave me nightmares. I thought it was going to be. I don't know what my mother was thinking. However old I was when that movie came out, gave me nightmares. I want to just bring up one chat here. J.J. Abrams killed Star Trek with his movies. True or false?
Pretty much true. Look, J.J. Abrams is a cinematic antichrist. I used to think it was Akiva Goldsman with the nipples on the bat suit. I thought there was no human being that could write worse than Akiva Goldsman. But holy smokes, J.J. Abrams, even when he makes a good movie, that's the thing is J.J. Abrams will come in like a cloud of locusts, and the people on the ground may think, oh, look at that. This cloud is blocking the sun. It's so much cooler now. Then it descends on the crop. It not only strips the crop, but also salts the earth so that nothing will grow there again. So Star Trek 2009 was a fun little romp that was very well done, in my opinion. It had some dumb things in it, but it was in an alternate universe, so I was okay with it. But then Star Trek Into Darkness came, his second movie, which was literally one of the stupidest things ever made by man. I mean, it made me question the existence of sentience. I thought I was in some kind of bubble reality or Matrix. I thought that Highlander 2 was terrible, but Jesus Christ almighty. Star Trek Into Dumbness. Oh. And then that spawned Kurtzman out of Secret Hideout, which is a bad reboot minor demon, to go ahead and then get their hooks into the Star Trek series and finish off the job. So yeah, I mean, you can say ultimately it's a circuitous path, but you can say that Star Trek 2009 planted the seeds that salted the earth that made Star Trek never grow again. But again, how can investors tolerate the degradation of one of the crown jewels in Paramount's crown? How can you justify the losses, the profound loss that can never be recouped or even calculated? They're still pursuing this, despite Viacom CBS's stock tanking, losing over 50% of its value this past week. And they're still going to move forward with throwing money after another Kurtzman track, another Star Trek Strange New Worlds, for God's sakes.
So it turns out, Jar Jar Abrams and his little mystery box is not the solution. And I think what you're talking about is right, in that half of this is woke politics and the high priest of the contemporary culture wanting to usurp our canon for their own ideological purposes. And then another part of it is it's covering for and masking and disguising ineptitude and incompetence. It's like Thomas Paine's criticism of the divine right of kings. You just have to look at these families and some of these kids and realize all the incest and that this didn't come from God, these people's claims to have a right to rule the rest of us. And you see that with Jar Jar Abrams. A lot of his limitations are one of competence rather than politics. And another example, of course, was Dumb and Dumber on Game of Thrones, who just completely wrecked it because they're just completely imbecilic in their approach, had no history of success in writing and crafting stories. They just were good at usurping other people's stories. And when they ran out of script, we found out what it looked like. And I think a large part of it is this ineptitude. But then you have pushback from the Jon Favreaus of the world. How much do you think that pushback within Lucasfilms and then within other places and pockets, like shows such as you mentioned with The Expanse, how much of those can start to experience a resurgence, especially as this woke world and incompetent world continues to fail economically?
I think we're winning. I really honestly do. I feel that we are winning because we are getting so much more fire. We are getting so much more ire. We're getting, more targeted things against us. And, that's how you know that you're over the target, is when you're drawing the flag. Look, you can only deny reality for so long. You can vamp and you can have control of the media and you can publish all the 1984-esque, articles that you want to, praising the latest regime. But ultimately, by their merchandise shall ye know them. By the Forbes articles shall ye know them. These things are absolutely coming to bite them in the ass, and they're trying to hide it. But I think the situation with COVID accelerated this natural evolution by, I like to say, 7 years. I mean, it would have been a lot longer, slower road to the point where the corporations were desperate enough financially to start to actually worry about this stuff. They thought they were invulnerable. They thought, we got our parks, we got our boats and everything else. We don't have to worry about, if this is good or not. Let's virtue signal and at tea parties we'll be saluted as how wonderful we fucking are. And it's just not. It's just not. The reality is a harsh thing. And to your point earlier, Kathleen Kennedy has never told a story and could not tell a story to save her life. But she and her minions on the Lucasfilm Story Group, they sure can count. And they can go ahead and say, well, we need this percentage of gay representation. We need this percentage of people of color. And we need this percentage of women. And we got to put a woman in the lead role. And we'll just cannibalize what more talented, more skilled, and more honest and compassionate people did in the past. And we'll just pervert it. Cultural vandalism. That's all that they can do. It's much easier to destroy than to create. And they are taking the easy path because they want their little participation trophy.
It's an amazing thing. You brought up a memory from childhood where one of the earlier memories, I was 8 or 9 with my best friend. We're watching the news for whatever the reason. And a Quebec politician is talking about a poster intended to raise awareness for a new government program. And this is like, it's 32 years ago. He's saying, look at how diverse this is. We have a person of color here, although they weren't using that terminology. And then he says, and he has a French accent. He's speaking in English, and he says, and we might put a gay person over here. And the journalist bust out into an uproar. It's like, how dare you talk like that? What exactly does it? What would a gay person look like? And we've come in 30 years to go the exact full 360 or 180 opposite. Where now it really is a question of it is marginalizing people by reducing them to certain basic elements that are identity elements, but not necessarily individual human elements, and just saying tokenizing them, if that's not a word. And it's frustrating to watch when it becomes the rule by which the films are made, and it's so much so that it's predictable. And when the quality is not there to boot, so it's true. Like you say, we might have taken 7 years to get here, but for COVID being locked down, movie theaters being shut down, and everybody focusing on this, and to some extent the internet, people like you, Doomcock, and Nerdrotic, raising awareness about it, and people finally realizing this is what has been wrong with it. And I don't know where that rant was going, but
it was great.
How do you turn it around, and where does it turn around? Because my impression, it's going to be turned around from the bottom up and not the top down. And these big companies are going to have to go out of business, and it's going to have to go back to indie films, people with actual stories to tell. And you're going to sacrifice the special effects for actual storytelling. And you're going to sacrifice the marginalizing of humans to fit quotas for the actual story that's going to write itself. But we have to get there. But
during that speech, I wanted to interrupt and say "Viva, Viva," because you were spot on. You were spot on. Yes, the marginalization of human beings. That's what it is. They only look at people. I don't know why these people are not insulted. I don't know why they accept this shoddy, trading of parts that are not written for them. But they're just layered over these existing tropes as if they are not worthy of their own stories, their own series, their own books, their own literature. Why not? Why not? Why should they be so shortchanged culturally as to get scraps from the cultural table. They are basically like you know, they are accepting cast off used goods instead of being allowed to have their own narratives. And it's because these people don't know how to tell stories. They don't care. And so people are just treated, whole classes, as tokens. Ultimately, they really are.
I mean, South Park, of course, portrays that beautifully by having the person be actually named Token. But I mean, it goes back to Christopher Lasch. He was talking about a lot of this in the 70s and 80s and 90s before he passed away, and sort of the revolts of the elites and a lot of these texts. But one of the things he picked up early on was that this new SJW logics, social justice warriors, for those that may not be aware of the terminology, NPC means non-player character. Or you can just watch CNN any night and see the same thing for live. But in that whole dynamic is the understanding that Lasch said that when you treat people as victims, he said pity is the ultimate form of contempt. You're really not treating these people as individual human beings. You're not respecting them as individual human beings. That's why, they find liberals tend to talk down to African Americans and others much more so than conservatives or others do, because down deep, it's a form of disrespect. Mm-hmm. Quotas and this kind of, the representation where you can only play this character if you're this race, which the number one group complaining about that historically in Hollywood were African-American actors who are like, I shouldn't be pigeonholed. I can play a white character that may have been written as a white character as much as anyone else, because very rarely does the race really matter that much to that character's storyline or arc or capability of performance. So it's really, it's disgraceful. And it's disparaging of people's individual conscience. And it's really, as you note, it's a form of racism, a form of sexism, a form of chauvinism, a form of moral superiority and self-righteousness that these SJWs vomit out onto the movie screen and the TV screen. And at least we're now starting to see some fight back. In that, what do you think the chances are within the Lucasfilms battle that Jon Favreau comes out on top of Kathleen Kennedy? And will the day come where we can champagne toast her career being thrown down the shaft like the Emperor?
Well, I was going to say, before the firing of Gina Carano, I felt it was a very, very imminent thing. I thought it was inevitable eventually. Because look at the High Republic. In the High Republic, they've got a rock as a character. And you know what that rock is called, Viva?
If I'm taking a guess, I wish if I could guess it. Token? No,
it's called Geode.
No,
the rock is named Geode.
I swear to you, I was going to say that, but that might be because I actually knew it because someone might have said it earlier. I thought when someone had a geode, I mean, I have a geode upstairs. It's a rock with a crystal center. It's beautiful.
Well, this is just a slab, but that's okay. It's, we're not literally a geode. I don't know. But the thing is, you've got the High Republic, which is doing nothing. And that's Kathleen Kennedy's project. And then you've got the Mandalorian, which at the season 2 finale that brought back Luke Skywalker, it broke the bank. I mean, it crashed their servers. It doubled, I think, or more than doubled their subscribers. All of those subscribers have consequently been lost as a result of firing Gina Carano. But the thing is, after firing Gina Carano, I don't know what Favreau is. I mean, Favreau now has to rewrite his entire plan because she was going to star in, allegedly, according to the leak that I got, which I believe was from a highly placed source, but I can't say. He was going to have Gina Carano star in Rangers of the New Republic, was going to be featured in The Mandalorian, was going to be having stuff appear in Ahsoka. I mean, throughout the entire kind of Favreau verse that was being set up, she was an integral part of it. And now that's been removed. I imagine that Jon Favreau is furious, demoralized. How can Disney allow this when he's the only one that has created any kind of Star Wars content that has caught the imagination of fans? I mean, they spent billions of dollars, over $4 billion on this stuff. Where's their return on investment? What has she done? And how much more is she going to cost them before they get rid of her and wake up and smell the coffee and kiss Jon Favreau's feet and allow him to proceed with his excellent plans? I don't know. At this point, it's really up in the air. I mean, it's been a back and forth for a long time. Kennedy, if there's nothing else, Kennedy is a very cunning Hollywood producer. Her husband, Frank Marshall, and she have been around forever. And when you're around Hollywood for that long, you know where the bodies are buried and you know how things go. And people have a certain amount of fear for you, fear for their careers, and so on and so forth. She also has extensive contacts. Allegedly, according to my sources, that story was able to be pushed so strongly about Gina Carano, slanders against Gina Carano, fake stuff against Gina. Yeah, I don't know.
Doomcock, sorry, go ahead, Robert.
How did you meet up with all of the sort of other members of the real resistance in the social media space that are out, Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, the rest of them? How did you end up meeting up with them?
Well, I got to give a shout out to my friends that were on my live stream last night. Midnight's Edge, great channel out there, and Robot Shlomo, Captain Rob himself is a member of Midnight's Edge, and he started shouting me out when I, maybe had 15 subscribers or something. He's a very funny guy. He's a comic and just a hell, he's one of us. He's really just a hell of a guy, and he started shouting me out on their live streams and on their videos. I would be sitting it was the weirdest thing. I was sitting on my couch late one night watching Midnight's Edge, as I was wont to do before I even started my channel. I watch YouTube stuff, and I heard Rob saying, and as my good friend Victor Van Doomcock is fond of saying, it's a disease of the mind, Star Trek Discovery, and I just almost fell off my chair. It's like, what? I'm not used to hearing myself referred to on TV, and they were like, Doomcock, who is this Doomcock guy? And then eventually I got introduced to Tom, and we did some videos together, and then the High Council, which was Geeks and Gamers and World Class BSers, and Ethan Van Sciver. They asked me on, and I appeared with them, and it just kind of snowballed, being exposed to different people and so on.
Doomcock, so I was trying to look into the Jeremy Geeks and Gamers controversy. This is not a question for you to affirm what put Geeks and Gamers on the naughty list. What would the adversaries or the haters of Geeks and Gamers say they did or Jeremy did to put them on the naughty list that Snyder had to disavow them? Because I still don't understand that.
Well, I mean, we are all kind of have a loose kind of term that I think came out of the High Council way back when, calling us the fandom menace. And it's not really like a club or anything. It's just kind of a loose conglomeration of people that kind of operate in the same way and are saying the same things. They don't like me. They don't like Geeks and Gamers. They don't like Midnight's Edge or Nerdrotic because we tell the truth. And I tell you, it drives them crazy because one of the key things that they like to employ against people in their lies and their slanders against us, they try to shame us. And unfortunately, it's impossible to shame a supervillain at the center of the earth. I just don't give a shit. I'm telling the truth, and they can go through all of my videos. I have, God knows, hundreds of hours of live streams where I'm just talking like I am now off the top of my head. And surely, in all of those times, I would have slipped up if I had some kind of horrible, inner opinions or some kind of prejudice or anything. And no, I talk about bringing people together. I talk about tolerance. I talk about my love of Star Trek. And I've never met anybody that was an ist or a phobe that loves Star Trek. It's just really kind of doesn't go with the brand, does it?
But so I mean, it's nothing like, it's not like Jeremy had a PewDiePie N-word moment during a live game. Like, it's nothing as black and white as that. It's just that he complains about SJWs, which people take to be an offensive term, and so it's a general thing that Geeks and Gamers did. It's not one specific, dropping a bomb during a stream.
Well, it was a hit piece by a loosely affiliated quasi front group for certain aspects of Lucasfilm that was a marginal piece that was then promoted on social media, and it was just a smear campaign. And it was a smear campaign because part of it is their own fake reality in this bubble that anybody who dislikes and disagrees with our SJW values is an alt-right, evil, neo-Nazi. And some of them convince themselves of this lunacy. They really think this, and it's why they think down deep our ideas are really popular, and everybody really loves them. And this gets reinforced by the nature of the bubble. And then the other part is that they're just accustomed to this smear working, because it worked for so many of these people. They're kids who write these pieces. They're 19, 20, 21, 22. They're that range. They've grown up in safe space culture from the time they were kids. They went on little play dates. Whatever you do, don't go out and play in the yard. Don't go play in the local park. That's dangerous and scary. So, make sure your date is, scheduled with who you get to play with when you're 7. So they grew up in that culture from that age, and they've been taught in junior high and high school and college. This generation, my niece was learning about intersectional feminism when she was in high school in Tennessee. That I remember when she first told me about it, I tried not to laugh. She wrote a big paper about it. I was like, "What the f is that?" But I was nice. I was respectful. She's a sweet kid. But it's all nonsense and gibberish. It just is. Who fits on the Olympic chart, the oppression Olympic chart. But that's what it was. It was a pure hit piece. But they're so accustomed to these hit pieces working. And Zack Snyder kind of wussed out, ran underneath the table. Yeah. He may not have meant to throw them under the bus to the scale that he was interpreted as doing so. He may have combined 2 sentences because he's not the most skilled communicator in that context. And I thought Justice League his remake was a lot better than the first one. So I'll give him credit for that. But it's because they're also terrified in Hollywood. You can't step out of line if the priest of the high culture there condemn you. And what Doomcock is saying is definitely right about Kathleen Kennedy. If people want a loose portrait for Kathleen Kennedy's character, they can watch the Ray Donovan episode about a major played by Susan Sarandon and get a loose sense of where a lot of this power comes from. It's kind of a deep state hush-hush of its own is the way Hollywood operates. I mean, I lived in Malibu for more than a decade. A lot of my friends are still in that world, and they have to keep their mouth shut. They do not say anything on social media. They don't say anything publicly. They make sure because they know they would be railroaded tomorrow right out of the industry, even though they're highly successful agents and highly successful writers, producers, at every level in Hollywood. They have to keep their mouths shut in fear of being completely censored and barred. That's why Zack Snyder ran for cover from someone that he knew didn't do anything wrong. And he didn't. Yeah.
No, that's it. Now I sort of understand why. Even I watched Geeks and Gamers analysis, and they said even give Zack Snyder the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he put together 2 ideas. So there was nothing that I missed. It's just he merged 2 ideas. One was that people don't like Geeks and Gamers, and you, Doomcock, because you are critics of movies that they spend billions on, and the other was the generic standing against hate. Doomcock, I don't know how much time we have left with you. One question I want to ask before you leave, so that everybody knows: how did you get your name? Because I heard it the first time I associated it with Doomkopf, which is stupid in German, and not what I think it might be the origins of the name. Is your name deliberately to needle people into reaction, or is there a history to it?
Well, one might think, by that name that it might have been selected as the most dickish and offensive thing that I could come up with. But in actual fact, it's based on my family name, Doomhan. But I was born in the 1800s. It's a long story. Basically, it's one of those. It's one of those.
And another.
But I have to say one last thing, because I keep wanting to slip this in, and the conversation sweeps it away. The reason why these SJWs love their victimhood is because it explains their lack of success. If you are victimized, you're not to blame for basically tweeting on your couch all day about ists and phobes. Your lack of achievement in real life because you started out so brilliantly. After all, you got trophy after trophy after trophy on the playground. You were the best. You were the chosen one, Anakin. You were the chosen one. What happened? Why are you in a nowhere situation now? And you're basically sitting there. It's because you're a victim. Oh, poor baby. Well, that explains it. That's why they love their victimhood.
Well, exactly. I mean, one of the key psychologies to figuring out working class people that succeed and achieve is whether they have an inner loci of control or an external loci of control. And so much of SJW culture is built on externalizing the loci of control so that you're never responsible for your own well-being. Someone else is. You can be in a constant state of accusation, but it also creates a culture, society, economy, politics of codependence. Because, I mean, for example, say the Democratic Party's relationship with the African-American vote. If they can maintain a codependent culture, then they can remain useful. The moment the African-American community achieves meaningful economic, political empowerment, it no longer needs the Democratic Party to achieve it. And so there's actually a perverse incentive for the Democratic Party to maintain and sustain a lower state of economic success within the African-American community in order to maintain their political voting power that they provide for Democrats to achieve power. It's just one example. You could have the same illustration for Republicans after the Civil War with the African-American vote. And there's many examples of it, but there's no, like, the biggest difference is do I feel you want to find someone that's working class or poor that has overachieved in life, you will find someone disproportionately that has an inner loci of control. Even when sometimes it's kind of absurd for them to have an inner loci of control, when their life should have prevented them from achieving the success that they did, because they have kind of a Trumpian mindset of, yeah, I can be president, why not? The same mindset allows them to achieve that which no one else can achieve. And I think you're right that wokeism is in part a disguise for incompetence, and it's part of an externalized loci of control for everything that happens that is critical and essential to justify to themselves and to others why they should still be in a position of power, empowerment, when they've done nothing to achieve that on any meritocratic grounds.
And merit is like a lifeblood of democracy. I mean, of capitalism. Merit is important. Jordan Peterson, I really love listening to Jordan Peterson. I think the man is a fascinating fellow. I'd really love to meet him someday. But I tell you, he talks about one of the worst things, the most pernicious things, is wanting equality of result, equality of outcome, where everybody has the same outcome, which is really the Soviet model, which is why, the farms didn't grow food and nobody made anything that worked and everything fell apart, is because there is no impetus to excellence. And I think that's a damn shame. And that's one of the reasons why our culture is in decline. And that's one of the reasons why I try to hold the line against, what many view as kind of the lowest form of art, but I don't. I see it all, as I said before, in my 5-star system. Hamlet is a masterpiece in the same way that Lawrence of Arabia is a masterpiece, or All You Need Is Love by the Beatles.
All right, we got Jay Mills says, wanted to say thanks for Doomcock for staying in the culture fight. Please keep shining a light on everyone intentionally destroying all the great shows we grew up with. And Doomcock, from what I've seen, let's see, we got one more chat that I can grab right away. The easily offended are the easily manipulated. Thank you, Viva, Fry, and Barnes for this live stream from Texas. Hail Doomcock. Now, Doomcock, I saw a lot of Fs, and I understand that you have created a tradition around the F as it comes through. So how does it work?
Well, I'm not, it depends on who called it, or I think maybe it's like fanned and flamed, like, it might be a representation of that they agree with something I said or something that you guys said. And I really appreciate it. And I just want to say to George Molho, who just left that super chat, he was really kind to me last night on my 250K celebration live stream. I just want to say thank you, George. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
And one more question that I have: are you going to ever do a face reveal? And first of all, do people outside of the YouTube world know who you are, your actual identity, or are you never actually going to ever be able to do a face reveal because of the nature of the information provided to you and the channel?
Nobody, my family doesn't even know. I don't even tell them. So, but I tell you, I have said fancifully that if I ever hit 1 million subscribers, I will take off the helmet. Of course, what's under the helmet, who knows what will be under the helmet, but I will take off the helmet at 1 million subscribers, which I think will happen, about never.
Well, that is spoken like a true lawyer or politician. In that, what's under the helmet could be another helmet. It's helmets all the way down. Doomcock is helmets all the way to the core. Doomcock, do we? I don't know. I don't want to keep you longer than you can stay. Or
I could stick around for maybe another 30 minutes if you'd like.
Okay, so let's see what we can do. Yeah, we can't go over 2 hours anyhow because I'll get destroyed upstairs. Let me see. We got some more super chats. Warner Brothers pushed Zach into the move. All it did was kill donations from his charity. Stupid move. Hail Doomcock. Hail Viva Barnes and the chat. Yeah, the scandal. I mean, now I understand it. Is that I thought that Geeks and Gamers had done something. Call it objective, if I'm thinking objectively, but I thought maybe they had like a PewDiePie moment. But if it's just Zack Snyder caving, like, you know, going back to the Captain Underpants and Dav Pilkey and his apology on his YouTube channel, that's an apology. That reads like an apology that required 2 broken arms in order to extort, or that came at a severe threat of financial consequences if you did not admit the error, self-flagellate, and then promise to do better. And that will keep you your future contracts with your publisher. Although I suspect something is going to happen that's going to cost him that anyhow. Yeah, I had no question after that. It just some of the apologies did not seem sincere, Robert.
Yeah, and have you been subject to any of those smear campaigns yet?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, they you know, shit. Esquire has written hit pieces on me. You know, all over the place, man. It happens every day. And I just don't give a shit. You know, because you know what I would care if they pulled something that I actually said, if they pulled actual video of something that I had said or done that did not accurately reflect my values or something, which they never do, because first of all, the name of Dictor Van Doomcock melts snowflakes at a distance of 50 yards. The mere mention of my name has been known to send them into a tizzy. And I don't fucking apologize. I will never don't apologize to these people. They're leeches. You know, the Captain Underpants guy, I would have never apologized. I would have said, you know what? Screw you. People know who I am. I'm just going to go ahead and self-publish. Ta-da! You know, if you've already made some money, how much is your soul worth? How much is your integrity worth? These people are sending lies to you. They're vilifying you. They are characterizing you in a way that you are not. Be damned if I'm going to apologize.
It was the Pilkey one was particularly egregious because if what made the character offensive was in fact offensive, then all the other characters are equally as offensive. You know, I don't know what the guy, what's it, Wachowski? I don't know what his last name was, but it was Eastern European sort of last name. He has some sort of, you know, typical or stereotypical characteristics. Gluck Jones, different last name, features that could be offensive if one wants to get offended. But you have already a diverse character celebrating the wonderful aspects of another culture, of an individual of that culture, dressed in the traditional garb of that culture, and somehow this is offensive. Now, some people were rightly pointing out that in the graphic newspaper that, you know, was explaining how offensive it was, the line on one of the images said, "Two Wongs don't make it right," and the character's name was Wong. Okay, so maybe someone can take offense at.
It's called a joke.
Well, but it's a joke. Some of the people are going to say it's an insensitive joke. It makes fun of last names.
Yeah, humor can often be insensitive. That's what makes it funny. It's like Seinfeld said, the reason I had to say it was because it was the worst thing, because that's the funniest.
Your Seinfeld voice is pretty good, actually.
Thank you.
No, but, well, the other thing is, I was
anything wrong with it.
No, the other thing is Wong as a last name. I think I was looking it up yesterday from an article from 2010, 2011. There's like 60 million people with the name Wong in the world, all over the world. In Canada, they had a gathering of Wongs, and they weren't all the same family. But it was a thing to celebrate the history of the last name, why it's such a popular common last name. But it's like praising and giving credit where you want to celebrate aspects of the culture is racism, but tokenizing them is diversity, is somehow progress. It's all backwards. It's all backwards to a point where, Robert.
In today's era, when Edwin Edwards got caught using a fake name to do illicit traveling for gambling purposes, and he traveled under the name Wong, the scandal wouldn't be his illicit activities, but that he used the name Wong. I mean, that's the kind of insanity. But yeah, you're right. One of the things that it seemed to me, the entire young, what I call sort of pop culture of a different kind, because populist culture, popular culture, kind of punk culture, but sort of the sort of cultural revolution that was happening in a whole generation that ended up influencing elections and politics, because they created the meme world and the rest, was that they understood certain things about dealing with woke world. And one of them was never, ever apologize. And one of the reasons for Trump's early popularity with that group was that's Trump. Now, Trump does it for his own reasons. He was taught that as a means of persuasion and PR communication to the 70s by people like Roy Cohn. Never apologize, always attack. Never apologize, always attack. But in so many of the other people within the professional class, the political class, the media class, even on the right politically, quickly, we're eager to apologize. The Mitt Romneys of the world couldn't wait to walk in a BLM rally and bow and curtsy and say, I'm sorry, and beat themselves in public for whatever social sin they committed lately, not realizing all that does is empower the inquisitionalists. What's interesting is how much people in the world that you inhabit and occupy understand instinctively and from learned experience to not do what Mr. Captain Underpants did or what the Dr. Seuss estate did, which was ever apologize. At what point did you learn the importance of that in dealing with this world?
I'm just a stubborn son of a bitch. And, I will absolutely apologize if I've actually done something wrong. I would be the first to apologize, humility, that's part of our humanity. And if I, it's happened sometimes. I've been on a live stream and I've snapped at somebody because I was in a bad mood or something. And a few minutes later, I come back and I apologize. I say, you know what? I'm so sorry. I just was in a bad mood and, you got in the way and you got me at a wrong time. I mean, I believe in apologizing. I just don't believe in apologizing for BS, SJW accusations because it's never enough for them. It's never enough. And it will only lead you. It won't save you. It won't save you. I mean, it'll damage you inside, internally. You'll be coughing up blood, metaphorically.
Well, not just that, but when you also an insincere apology. The quote I ended my video on yesterday was, "An apology is a foundation for new offense." I forget who it was now, but it's a great quote. But the idea is when you have an insincere apology, and I think Dov Pilkey's apology was insincere, it also creates a false. It creates a false negative about the individual. Dov Pilkey now has apologized for passive racism. There can be no passive racism when there's no racism in an individual, and the individual, Dov Pilkey, was celebrating diversity, celebrating tolerance, celebrating nonviolent conflict resolutions, and then has to apologize because someone said it's passively racist. In that case, it would have been a big FU as an apology. I'm not apologizing for something I did on purpose, meant, and don't think there's anything wrong with. Now, someone says here, Paul Moyer says, Viva Fry, I thought the brouhaha was because of the two non-Asians saved the Asian guy using his own tools. Am I off base? That was one of the indications that they said, that they alluded to the fact that the two non-Asian characters ended up saving the Kung Fu Master at the end. But the article that I saw said it was the traditional Asian garb and the depiction, which I think were the eyes in the cartoon. And it's a discussion I've been having with people is you're dealing with cartoons and comics. Everything is necessarily reduced to something of a caricature just by nature of the detail, where you're going to have features such as you had with Gluck. If you hear a kid screaming upstairs, that's nearing the witching hour. But in cartoons, comics, you necessarily have a certain element of caricaturizing the defining features of the characters, especially when it comes to ethnicity. And so my whole ironic joke is, this is the supremacy that you are seeking to avoid. If you can't do that, you're just going to create a world where you have all white characters in comics because nobody wants to get accused of caricaturizing the non-white characters. And it's preposterous.
Well, and I always remember South Park, which did a reverse version of this, where they had two Chinese announcers make fun of Americans by do this, have their eyes go like this and they talk in a certain voice. So it's like, yeah, leave it to South Park to be able to come up with that kind of genius refutation. Now, how do you think South Park has survived? Because South Park has continued to satirize whatever they want, mock whatever they want, go wherever they want, seemingly without fear. Now, there was the Isaac Hayes issue for a little while and some other stuff, but for the most part, they've managed to make fun of a wide range, equal opportunity offender politically, and be able to escape the acts of woke world. Well, what do you think that's attributable to?
Because South Park is like Doomcock. They don't give a damn. And, I mean, my God, they've made so much money. They've minted so much money. What do they care? They could never make another South Park again, and they'd be perfectly fine. They would have no problems whatsoever. And so, it's kind of like the reason I despair so much about Patrick Stewart participating in the degradation and humiliation of his key character, Jean-Luc Picard. How much money do you need in your life that you would allow Alex Kurtzman and Suckerit Hideout to craft a script where you're going around, I apologize for the Federation's failings, and they even had him beamed down to a planet in a fucking white, plantation owner kind of outfit, trying to drive it home. The patriarchy right there, you see. It's soulless. It's horrible. It's degrading.
Oh, yeah. I've got to read this down. I forget if the English pronunciation was Evgeny. I think it was. The idea of, quote, and I'm dictating, it's not enough to punish. Apology and confession must be forced first, then punish anyway. It's so Stalin-esque and it's so insane to repeat. Executioners of 34 were themselves executed in 37. That's what, I mean, blows my mind, is that they don't appreciate is it will never be enough, and they're always going to find something even after. And the ones who think that they're safe now are not safe later. But Doomcock, I'm going to push back on you a little bit. Some are going to say it's very easy for you not to apologize when you're unidentified. So you have a bit of a, some will call it, some have, I was looking up some of the hate, called you a coward for hiding behind the mask. And others are going to say it's easy not to have to apologize when they can't go after you personally, although obviously they can still, go after your channel and the livelihood you make from it. But I guess one thing, how do you respond to that? And second question, have there been any meaningful doxing campaigns against you?
Oh yeah, but the problem is with them, I don't worry about it, because the problem is I have all sorts of financial opportunities and all sorts of people wanting to work with me and give me sponsorships, allow me to make movies, allow me to act in movies. Not outside of Hollywood, but there's still a lot of funding out there, and all of that is just waiting at my fingertips the minute that I decide, you know what? I just decide I don't give a shit. I'm just going to take it off and do it. So, I've thought about, doing it to myself. But, right now I'm happy. I'm having fun. And, when you're a supervillain, you don't take off your helmet until the final act. Look at Darth Vader. Darth Vader wasn't scared of shit. He was just, he had a helmet on. Same thing with Dictor Van Doomcock.
Well, yeah, that was the point with that Critical Drinker made about the importance of the Darth Vader character compared to them. I mean, when they early on had, I even forget his name, the low part of Reylo, whatever, that when he took his mask off early, because my brother was a massive Star Wars fan. I was a Star Wars fan, but not to my brother's level. To him, it was, and I think what's underestimated is how psychologically important this part of the culture canon was. It's why we tell origin stories. It's why the danger of evil origin stories. Social Darwinism led to racial eugenics, led to the Nazis' theory of an Aryan race gibberish origin story that gave us Hitler and the horrors of it. To certain degrees, aspects of communism created its own origin story that had major problems. In a sense, it's always been a conflict between the classes and so forth. So that these origin stories can either salvage and save a person's individually, their psyche and their soul, and a community and a culture's, or it can do extraordinary damage to it. And I think that's what's underappreciated, is how important these cultural influence is in the world of comics, in the world of games, in the world of entertainment at every level. And it's why the wokesters understand this. And that's why they infiltrate it, try to co-opt it, try to take their emotional vampirism and suck the soul out of it and give it some sort of zombified presence that perverts the original principles and premises associated with it. And it's why people like you being on the front lines of it are critical and essential. And it's been awesome seeing the explosion of interest in the audience that you've experienced and that other people in your space has experienced to push back as a real resistance against this sort of empire of woke evil. Did you think that, well, you mentioned that you started out small. Did you think it would grow to something like this, or was it just sort of the chance of circumstance?
No, I never thought it would grow. I never thought I would even be noticed. It was an act of anger and despair, honestly. And that's, I think, why I have succeeded as I have. It's because it's sincere. It's not something I didn't know anything about YouTube. I had no people I knew on YouTube. I had no idea that there were monetization. I mean, what did I, you're gonna make a few bucks, what is that? I didn't even know about live streams. I knew nothing. All I knew is that I was in despair that something I loved was being destroyed. And I think, honestly, that is why people have responded. It's because I have stayed true, and I speak from a core of a philosophical position that is consistent, and I think people respond to that.
It is an amazing thing. Like dishonesty, or I would say more fakeness, can only go so far, and then it becomes it gets uncovered eventually. And I won't draw any analogies or comparisons or give examples of those who have been exposed just through their own persistent behavior that they can't keep up with the facade. But the brutal honesty, and it doesn't have to be brutal, just honesty, treating people with respect, being yourself, and saying what you think. You don't have to say what you think all the time, but don't say something you don't think for whatever the reason. People appreciate that. And that's typically where I've seen channels start to grow, when they convey a message that is an honest message and that a lot of people agree with, but are just either too shy to express, or not on the platform to do it themselves, or not in the realm to give opinions on YouTube. And so I was charting your growth, Doomcock. I don't know what happened in 2019, but it was steady, it spiked, and now you've got a critical mass, or you've got like a certain amount of momentum where people come to you for the honesty that perhaps they themselves are not yet comfortable enough with to release themselves onto the public. And it's you speak for other people.
And that's why I get all of these sources and leaks, and I don't actually share most of it. In fact, I got an incredible story today about how, Kathleen Kennedy, a very personal anecdote about an experience with her a few decades ago that was absolutely just telling. Oh my God, it was. I wish I could detail it, but I can't figure out a way not to give away who this person was. So I'm just gonna keep it to myself. But oh my God, so often.
Or hope someone else reveals the story.
Well, no, then I'd feel bad because I didn't. So I'd rather it just stay buried. If I can't bring it out, nobody should bring it out. But I get that kind of thing all the time, and I sit on things that I don't think. And also things that don't ring true. I always say that these things are rumors because there's no way for me to verify it. I can't see the budgets. I can't see the numbers myself. So I don't know, but the preponderance of the things that I'm hearing from different sources seem to add up, and it just seems, is it plausible? Is it not? And I let the audience decide for themselves.
Now, how much have you faced big tech algorithmic manipulation? Because I know there's been an issue. Viva's faced it. People don't get notifications. People get unsubscribed without their voluntary support. With Steven Crowder, of course, they suspended him for this week, even though he's one of the most popular YouTubers by a long mile. How much have you had to deal with that?
Constantly. I see subs getting taken off every day. People who are subscribed, not just subscribed, but are channel members, paying channel members at the highest level, the arch villain level. Paying because they love the channel so much. Hey, I just got unsubscribed. People that are actively watching are getting unsubscribed without anybody telling them. And people say to me, you're lying. You're like, every single day. And in every single live stream, people come in and say, I just found out I was unsubscribed. And what the hell? I pay money to be supporting this channel. It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. I get the comments all the time. I always take them with a grain of salt until my wife said that she unsubscribed. And then even then it's like, maybe she accidentally hit the button with her finger and unsubscribed. I think I don't want to believe it, but Doomcock, if I can ask you your maybe it's not a personal question, but retention rate on your videos, engagement, what is like the average retention rate on a video that you make?
I honestly, I don't even know. I know that there's some guys that are really good at the, analyzing in the numbers and, trends and stuff. I'm just kind of a cowboy just shooting from the hip, and I'm throwing stuff, and I just look at, well, how many views did it get? And what's the like versus dislike ratio? And that's it. That's all.
That's where I try to determine if there's algorithmic manipulation, because when I put out some videos, the thumbs up to the view ratio to thumbs up ratio is over the top. The thumbs down ratio is over the top. The comments are over the top. And I don't know what it takes to get something to get, plugged into that trend, if not the engagement that I can clearly see on videos that will have 10% thumbs up to views and and thousands of comments. Like, I don't know what it takes. But I try not to blame what I might consider to be frustrated growth on an algorithm. And I'm actually I'm over the top with where this channel has gotten. And, at some point, even if there is algorithmic suppression, good enough is good enough, even if it could be better. And you can't complain, because we are allowed, as bad as this platform is for certain types of suppression and censorship, it's still allowing us to exist for the time being and get a message out. The only problem is you get to a Crowder level influence, and then you become a danger as opposed to an entertainment, which is when the hammer comes down.
Do you have any backup, Doomcock, for dealing with future YouTube complete suppression or censorship down the road?
Not real. I mean, there isn't really any comparable thing out there. I mean, I would probably guide people to my Patreon or my Subscribe Star and start just putting content out there. I mean, that's the thing is at a certain level, people do not like voices being stilled. They did not like Gina Carano getting fired. It made her, like Obi-Wan said, if you strike me down, I should become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That's the thing. I mean, if something like that happens, boy, people will rally to the banner. It will probably quadruple my following, and I will go to Patreon or Subscribe Star, have support there, and then maybe start moving over to some alternate video platform at that point. And just say, you know what, that's what we're doing.
Doomcock.
Yeah, I think it would be great if you and the entire culture group, one that Viva and I are using is Locals, because both as a backup, but also we provide exclusive content there. But it's a way of creating, because of, I know the owner, Dave Rubin, how they designed it, how they create it. They decentralize information, so you own all your own content. You own all the information about your own subscribers. Nobody else does. And it has video capabilities, podcast capabilities, kind of a Facebook posting commentary capability, so your community can participate and communicate with one another. So I think it would be a useful backup for you guys to just start to create, have some fun with. We're at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, but you can have a doomcock.locals.com, a nerdrotic.locals.com, some other ones. I think it would be useful is just to have a backup.
Yeah.
And get the audience familiar with it in advance, because it seemed to me the onslaught against geeks and gamers was the beginning of a campaign to try to deplatform you guys because of your growing success. And when it shows up, when people call in to Disney investor conferences and they appear to be quoting effectively you or others in that community, all of a sudden some big wigs are going to start paying attention that might have otherwise pretended, this is just some little alt-right sphere. Now starting to recognize that, no, this is actually where the popular majority and the popular mass of people who are true fans actually exist.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I'm not like some kind of nation state. I mean, I've got 250,000 subs, but that's not nearly enough to completely change the entire public opinion. I mean, if that stuff is starting to bleed into a Disney investors calls, didn't come from us. I mean, that is an awareness that has seeped into the general population. And at that point, that's when they really, that's why I say we're winning, that this viewpoint is out there, whether or not it's coming directly from us or seeds we planted or whatever. I think it's out there. I think they're going to have to deal with it. And, they need to, basically, we are consumers. We are the customers. They are creating a product. They cannot make it that we cannot critique the product. And that's just the bottom line. And they will prosper if they sell us things we want to buy, and they will fail if we are not interested.
All right, and on that might be a good note to end it. I don't know if anybody can hear the dog barking now, but now there's one thing that's happening. Robert, books behind you, but just for the crowd.
Oh, sure. One of it's called Deep State by Mike Lofgren, and the other one is a book by Robert Grueller. He sent it to me as a gift from watching The Watchers. .locals.com. Good, great guy. So the sort of a shout out to him, and hopefully soon Doomcock will in fact be the future ruler of Earth.
And Doomcock, I was going to say what was I just about to say about Doomcock? To give you the last word, because people have been asking, can you take us out with a song, or does that put you on the spot too much?
I could take us out with a song. Why not? Let's see. How about this? When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world is bright and gay. But when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they'll steal your heart away.
All right, and there can be no better way to end the stream than that. Thank you all in the chat for tuning in. Doomcock, thank you very much. We'll do this again. Robert, thanks as always. Everyone, you two stick around. We'll say our proper goodbyes, but everyone in the broadcast, thank you very much. Have a good evening. I can't seem